Let's begin with a thought experiment. Picture this. You are an officer on shift in a military base during the Cold War. Your job is to report any missile strikes from your enemies. Suddenly, your computer's warning systems detect a missile strike from the country. You hear the siren howling nonstop. There's this button in front of you. If you press this button, you will send a missile back to that enemy. This will cause conflict between your country and theirs, possibly killing millions of people. But it could save your country and your people. What would you do? Would you still choose to press this button? If you chose yes, you would have started another war. If you chose no, however, you may have this thing called equanimity. In Latin, the word equanimity is a combination of the words equal and mind. So, what does that mean? Defined by an equanimous role model of mine, William Osler, equanimity is the coolness and presence of mind under all circumstances, calmness amid storm, and clearness of judgment in moments of grave peril. It is knowing how to balance your emotions regardless of the outside world. This is different from apathy, as equanimity is not freeing yourself from human emotion, but from letting those emotions control you. By making it a habit to keep your cool at all times, you build the character of equanimity within you. A week ago, I was posed a question by a teacher that I would ask you now. When was the last time you lost control? Even after much thought, I couldn't recall any moments where I did so. I couldn't remember any time where I exploded with emotions, whether it be a fit of rage or a total breakdown. But then I realized, we are slowly shifting away from equanimity. Nowadays, we are increasingly romanticizing mental instability. Especially under the influence of social media, mental health issues have been more glorified than ever. As a result of raised awareness, self-diagnosis has become a trend. All of a sudden, being sad became depression, and feeling anxious became anxiety. All these serious conditions became so nonchalantly talked about and regarded as mere trends. And of course, those who fit in with these trends are seen as more interesting. This makes people even more comfortable and eager to share their issues on the internet, creating this endless chain reaction of social media toxicity. This will get to you at some point. However, there's this one thing that could make you immune to all this, which is equanimity. For the past 17 years of my life, I feel like it's been mundane, unlike others whose lives have more conflict and suspense. But then, I was introduced to this humanist physician, William Osler, when the headmaster of my school introduced me to a book called Osler, Inspirations from a Great Mind. William Osler was one of the 4 founders of the Johns Hopkins Hospital. He was somebody I felt like I could relate to in terms of values and his relaxed lifestyle. We both highly appreciate stability. I felt so inspired by him because he was the first person to introduce to me and make me understand the concept of equanimity, which was something that he advocated for throughout his years as a doctor. The more I researched on his ideas, the more I respected him. This was my introduction to equanimity. Several months later, I was involved in a drama project, which was my year's version of Romeo and Juliet. I was the acting coach. We all put a lot of effort into this project because of the extremely limited amount of time we had. During the filming day, there were many disagreements and even a few small quarrels. But despite all this, I knew that we had a shared goal. I knew that we all just simply wanted it to turn out the best way possible. So despite all the loud arguments and people going in different directions, I chose to remain calm. I tried to approach the different parties to understand their different perspectives on things and help them find common ground, because I wanted to bring them together. Eventually, everyone cooled down. This project made me notice how much calmer I've become after being introduced to equanimity. It also made me realize that choosing calm does go a long way, and that diplomacy is radiant. Once you choose to remain composed and manage to actually do it, those around you eventually will become that way too. This experience of mine reminds me of a quote by a fellow equanimous leader, Marcus Aurelius. "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." To put this into simple terms, it basically means that your obstacles will motivate you. Once you know that there's something in your way, you will push that block even harder than ever before. This is one of the qualities of equanimity, to not let fear stop you. Marcus Aurelius was the Roman emperor who led Rome through the Antonine Plague. He managed to survive and thrive despite facing countless challenges and losses, be it of his wife or his colleagues. But how? I think his incredibly high level of perseverance was because of his mindfulness and meditation, by learning how to stay present at all times, to not dwell on the past, to not overthink the future, to see things the way they are, instead of letting your emotions distort them for the worst. If Marcus kept grieving over losses or questioning the longevity of his empire, he would not have accomplished so much as a leader. I feel like we have too often thought of good leaders as only those who are bold and assertive. In the films or movies you watch, the main characters will always be somebody brave and outspoken. And it is undeniable that it takes courage to lead, but Marcus Aurelius was not just bold and assertive. With courage and nerve alone, how would you ensure the quality of your leadership? Suppose somebody's drowning. So you decide to jump in the water, though you don't even know how to swim. Sure, the courage is there, but survival, not guaranteed. When you lack equanimity, you act on a whim, putting yourself and others in danger. If only you didn't allow the feeling of alarm to take control of you, you would have thought through your decision. You might have called some rescue department, meaning that you wouldn't die and the person also wouldn't die. This is why we need to think through our decisions more. You may be thinking, it's just one small rash decision. What's the worst that could possibly happen? But disasters happen more often than you'd expect. Do you remember the thought experiment I began the speech with? The one about missiles and the button? That was a real historical incident. And the person who made the right decision of not pressing the button was this man. A Soviet officer, Lieutenant Colonel Petrov, was the person who did not press the button because he suspected the alarm to be a false alarm. So he did not report this alarm to any of his higher-ups. To him, the numbers simply did not add up. When the computer screen showed that there were 5 incoming missiles, he thought to himself, if the US were to attack the Soviet Union, then why only 5? Despite all the pressure around him, he was calm enough to think it through and brave enough to not believe the computer system. In scenarios like this, many would press the button out of panic or stress. But he did not let any of these take control. As a result, he saved countless lives. This is why equanimity should work alongside courage. With both nerve and calm, you will be able to lead in a way that is much better than having either one alone. The world needs more equanimous leaders and would benefit from more equanimous leaders. So before you make any quick decisions, step back. Breathe in and out, and ask yourself, am I doing this because I'm in control of my emotions, or am I letting my emotions take control of me? Whenever you come across an obstacle, don't rush it through. Because only when you are present will you be able to think clearly. Take your time before you ingest social media toxicity, before you jump in the water to save a drowning man, and take your time before you counterattack a missile strike that might have never even existed. Remember that equanimity is the secret to better leadership. Thank you.